Hello and welcome. We have here today your two favorite badass reverends, Rev C and Rev KA, on the listening field. Our mission is to have frank, weird, and honest conversations about spirituality, chaplaincy, and spiritual care from an interfaith, non-denominational lens.
We get a lot of interest in the crossover between homelessness and hospitals and healthcare, and the experience as somebody who's unhoused inside the hospital and how to navigate
Mhm.
those relationships and those scenarios. So as a street chaplain, I educate people on spiritual care for the unhoused, and that's kind of my specialty.
Mhm.
And KA is a kick-ass, hospital chaplain, just freaking healing people left and right. Miracles, 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 blessings, blessings, blessings. People are walking out of these freaking hospitals just, like, fully healed because of this bad bitch. And
Charlotte.
it's so true. And so we thought, like,
Yeah.
we're both 2 really brilliant ministers. Let's start our
Mhm.
listening field podcast with spiritual care for the unhoused in hospital and healthcare settings.
Yeah, it combines both of our backgrounds and our interests, and it's relevant. And like you said, Charlotte, people are really interested in this topic. The intersection of spiritual care and unhoused persons in the hospital setting is relevant. And I think that there is undereducation in this topic for both chaplains and for medical providers,
Yeah.
nurses, doctors, pretty much across the board.
Yeah.
When you offered a recent didactic on this, Charlotte, I remember you telling me that the chaplains that you were presenting to were all pretty like
Yeah.
shocked by the information,
Flabbergasted.
hadn't like heard this flabbergasted
Yeah.
by it, hadn't gotten this information before. And it comes up all the time
Yeah.
in hospitals. Like a large amount of the patients a hospital chaplain will see will be facing um homelessness.
Yeah.
So how do we meet this unique demographic is
Yeah.
the question. How do we interact with other medical staff in meeting the needs of these folks?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that something that I've learned as a street chaplain is that working with folks who are unhoused and in really deeply marginalized situations is
Mhm.
you are using your chaplain's skill set. You are being a chaplain, and also there's a specialized knowledge base that you need to have, and I think
Yeah.
that that knowledge can be and should be spoken about and on different levels for different people. So chaplains in hospitals should obviously have way more specialized training around working with unhoused folks. And also, like you said, like there's so many people who meet and are working with folks in the hospital and who who are doctors and nurses, and they also need to have at least the basic skill set, and I think it's really
Yes.
important. It's really important, and it's part of the kind of poverty bias of our country to just think that,
Yes.
yes, somebody who is unhoused is another human being like any other human being, and also they are facing such a myriad of different life circumstances
Yeah.
than your average person. And I don't know, okay, like I think often to the experiences, like we've worked together in a hospital setting before for a particular client, and that was one of the most challenging situations
Mhm.
that I've ever been in. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
Let's go into the educational content. So basically, through my work, I've tried to figure out ways to kind of educate people on a very basic level on like how to
Mhm.
work with folks who are unhoused. The things that are just fundamental to remember and practice. that are all rooted in spirituality and spiritual care. And when I'm saying spirituality and
Yeah.
spiritual care, I'm referring to non-faith-based care that is rooted in kind of like the common mysticism, the common spirituality that connects
Mhm.
everyone. No matter if you're an atheist or a hardcore Christian, like you can connect to these concepts in some way. And so that's what we're rooting this kind of system in. Thank you.
Say it one more time for the people in the back. Spiritual care does not mean that you necessarily have a faith tradition. It
Mm,
doesn't mean that you're a Christian. It doesn't mean that you're a
mm,
Buddhist. We're talking about principles that connect us to our humanness.
yeah.
Um, and this is a common misnomer. So free yourself from the shackles that prevent you from exploring this worthy venue of providing support to people. Go ahead, Charlotte.
And that, lady and gentlefolk and human beings is the closest you'll ever hear an interfaith minister come to evangelizing.
Yeah, it's actually really true. Just channeling my inner evangelical,
We
which I
all
don't have.
which
Wait.
no, we none of us have as ministers, especially as interfaith ministers. But yes, thank you for that point, KA. And yes, I think it's really important to this is an important thing to note that we cannot brush aside the power of spiritual
Mm,
care. Okay, so just to like kind of start off in our training, I'm going to jump into the 7 pillars shortly, but I think there are a few points to note. People are always asking me like, what do you do on the streets? Like, what are you doing? And my answer is almost exclusively I'm building trust. And
mm,
it doesn't matter whether I'm in a shelter, in a hospital, in the jail, on the streets. That is my clear and purposeful goal.
mhm,
And it's a hard one. It's not an easy
mhm,
one, especially when working with a person who has been really battered by the system and
yeah.
been abused and misused and lied to. And there's going to be an inherent distrust in me in everything that I'm trying to do to support them. And so trust building is like the first and most important thing to remember for any person working with somebody with unhoused who's unhoused is to remember like they they are not going to automatically trust that you have their best interests at heart right
Yeah.
off the bat versus I'm guessing other people in hospital. I mean, I'm sure there are lots of different types of people who come to the hospital, but like those of us who have homes, who have relative stability, we have a little bit more trust in the world.
Yeah.
And so when we go into the hospital for scary situations, it's a little bit easier to trust the hospital. Somebody who's unhoused is already in a scary situation and it just got
Mhm,
scarier. And
mhm.
the only person they can really trust is often themselves and maybe a couple friends, but you never really know. So there is trust building is really key. So another thing to remember, another key component is that the trauma that somebody is experiencing is not in the past. Something bad
Mhm,
didn't just happen to them and then they're like, "Oh, now I'm in the hospital and I'm safe." Like that's not the trauma is
mhm.
ongoing. The trauma is constant. Somebody who's on the streets is constantly going, is in a constant state of trauma and survival.
Yes.
Their bodies are functioning like quite literally in a different way. They are in survival mode because they're outside, they are not safe, their basic needs are not being met. And so again, this is like a really important thing because when you're trying to connect with someone, when you're trying to build support, when you're trying to work with them in any capacity at all, you are going to have to remember that they are in a survival mode. Like their
Right.
body, like their heart rate is up, their nervous system is different, their brain is different.
Mhm.
Like they are in an active state of I need to survive. I need to I'm not they're not comfortable, they're not relaxed. If they are, I mean, let me take that back. Some people I know who are unhoused, like the hospital is their safe place. And that does happen. And
Mhm,
that really does help the relationship because they feel,
mhm.
they're like, okay, like I'm finally inside and I'm having my basic needs met. That is not
Yeah.
often. I don't know. What do you think, KA? Is that like, do you see more survival based behavior?
Oh, yeah. I think that most of the unhoused people I've seen in the hospital are in a constant state of fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, which are, responses to a dysregulated nervous system.
Yeah.
Because, like you said so wisely, the trauma is ongoing. It wasn't in the
Yeah.
past, it's active and present in this moment. And hospital staff, whether you're a chaplain or not, represent an aspect of a potential aspect of an unhoused person's trauma through systems,
Totally.
through
Yeah.
through oppression, and it's real and in the moment.
Yeah. And I think that's like, I've known a lot of folks who are unhoused who would rather not go to the hospital, even if they're
Yeah,
in excruciating pain. I've seen somebody
yeah.
literally, like, in excruciating pain and refusing to go to the hospital because they're like, I've seen a lot of people come back from hospitals, and whether or not this is true, because again, like, there's some people, I don't know, like, have varying experiences that
Mhm,
are based in varying realities, but there's people come back from the hospital and be like, "They did this to me, they did this to me." And so
mhm,
there is a deep, whether or not truth in that, the truth is
mhm.
that they were afraid and they felt like they were mistreated. And so
Yes.
that's the truth, and that just goes to show that it's not doesn't necessarily have to do with the actual people administering to them and helping them, but it has
Yeah.
something to do with the system itself.
Yeah, so well said. And I think that that's a pervasive theme in this population. It doesn't have to do with the actual interactions, more the systemic trauma and the organizational trauma. And I do want to talk on your other point that some unhoused people do end up feeling comfortable in the
Yeah,
hospital setting.
yeah.
And I think that that's complex in itself as
Mhm.
well. There's complexity there.
Yeah. Are you saying because it's there's levels of trust and levels of distrust, or is it because of the impermanence of that situation? Like, what is the complexity?
I think that complexity is the impermanence of stability
Yeah.
that they have had a glimpse of in what might be considered like a good hospital stay where their needs are treated, and maybe their nervous system is able to come down a little bit, and then that's done, and then that's over, and
Right.
then it's moving on to another system.
Often wonder, and I'm not, because I've never been unhoused and I've never been in the hospital setting, but I often wonder if the waves of now I'm safe and I'm being fed, and now, oh, now
Mhm,
I'm being shoved into another system, and now I'm
mhm,
either going to a sniff, or now I'm going to
mhm. Yes.
like some other location, or they're just
Mm,
sending me back to the streets, and like the experience of having your body going from intense survival
mhm,
mode to, like, sort of out of it and then back
mhm.
into it, like, what is the psychological damage that comes from that, and
Yeah.
can we study that and figure out a way.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish I could cite something on that because that kind of feels like it to me. And that ties into something we talk about a lot in chaplaincy, which is like agency, authority, and power. And in the hospital, it happens with unhoused patients and patients that have stable housing that they often feel disenfranchised from their own life. So,
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
even more severe for an unhoused person
Yeah.
to be like, "Oh, you have 2 days of stability on med surg, and now you're going to a SNF where, by the way, there won't be a chaplain because there
Right.
unless you have a street chaplain coming in to visit you, there isn't that amenity at a SNF, so if you did find support through that, now that's gone."
Yep.
Um, not to mention all the other things that can be ripped out from under you.
Yeah, and also not to mention how sniffs can be really messed up.
Really, really bad.
Yeah, it's like not
Summer
like
sniffs to throw you under the bus here, but you
yeah,
gotta get it together.
but seriously, we are throwing you under the bus. Like I mean, I know that there are good ones out there, but Jesus Lord Christ, our
I
Savior.
know, it is gnarly.
Okay, so the last thing, so we're just I think this is good conversation. We're laying the foundation for the pillars. This is like the ground to walk on. This is okay, what are we holding and thinking about as
Mhm,
important factors in building relationships, in understanding somebody's situation. I think one last thing to mention um is that, especially for chaplains, you may encounter folks in who are experiencing mental illness, experiencing substance abuse, who will be
mhm,
having more mystical experiences or will be needing support in their spiritual experiences that they may be having. Things like mental illness, substance use, brain injuries, and starvation and lack of
mhm,
sleep all will and can produce non-ordinary states of consciousness. And so for
mhm.
those of you who are chaplains and for anybody in working with folks, to just be aware that those things may come up. I don't know about UKA, but as a chaplain, those conversations and those subjects often come up. Want to tell me about those experiences, especially when they're in like a pretty vulnerable situation. So that's just another thing to note. So, the 7 pillars of spiritual care for the unhoused. So, the first one, pillar one, is belief in the person. And so this kind of dovetails from what I literally just said about the non ordinary states of consciousness and kind of what I was speaking to before about people having different experiences of reality. It's very important to believe in the person. So, when I say believe in the person, I'm referring to navigating the relationship in a way where you trust their experience and the
Yeah,
emotions that they're having as real and true. So if somebody is, for example, schizophrenic or coming down from some drugs and they are telling you things that you may not see or you may not believe to be grounded in your reality, it's really
yeah,
important to believe in their dignity and worth and their humanity and to listen to their experience as true and real. It's often said that the stupidest thing that you can do when working with someone who's experiencing schizophrenia or different personality disorders or whatever is to tell them that what they're experiencing or seeing or feeling is not real because it is
yeah,
real. It 100% is real
mhm,
for them. And the
yeah,
word real, what is the definition of real? And so to establish a foundation of trust, it's really important to establish that, like, okay, I'm going to listen to you and I'm going to trust that your experience and your reality is true for you. I may not
yeah,
go and talk to the doctor and say, this person was just abducted by aliens. Like, what are we going to do? But I'm going to treat their experience of being abducted by an alien with as much seriousness as I can. There's like a line to be walked. So we don't need to be like, this person is saying the absolute truth 100% for all of reality. But it's more so like,
yeah,
how do we see the truth in their reality? Does that make
yeah.
sense?
Oh my god, that was so well said, Charlotte. I'm so glad that
Okay.
honestly that this was recorded because it's exactly right. And because someone is not in what we call consensus reality
Yeah.
doesn't mean that their experience is invalid. And that is so important, as you said, in building trust. Does that
Yes.
mean we have to act on the information that they gave us? No.
Yeah.
No, it does not. And I wanted to mention this just slightly tangentially because I think it's relevant to folks that work in the hospital. There's often a lot of talks after you meet someone, an unhoused person who's experiencing a different reality than maybe other people are. There is an impulse, and I think it's a very human one to be like, "Oh, what is that true? Is that true? Are they just taking me for a ride?" Blah blah blah. And my question to them always is, "Why do you care? How does it
Mm.
affect you? Why
Yeah.
is it your prerogative to make sure that this is in line with your reality.
Yeah.
What does that do for you? Because it doesn't matter to them. It doesn't build trust with
Yeah.
the patient. It doesn't um it doesn't center someone else's experience. It centers your need for there to be a reality that we can all agree on because of your own discomfort, actually.
Ugh.
And
Ugh.
this was a very common occurrence when I was a director for night ministry, and I trained people on the care line, and we talked to many people who presented this way. And it was very common for our CPE students, our chaplains in training, and for the volunteers to be like, "But I don't believe that. I
Right.
don't believe that. That is not the conversation we should be having."
Yeah, thanks. So well said, KA, and I completely agree. And I think I would argue that the only time that we need to assess whether somebody is speaking
Mm,
something into consent, like whether or not something is in alignment with consensus reality, is when we're in a situation where some sort of violence has happened or there's an
yeah.
emergency or a crisis.
Yes.
That's when you assess whether
Yes.
there is a consensus in the reality. But if like somebody's telling you that their father is Ronald Reagan and their mother is Marilyn
Mhm.
Monroe, or like, that they
Mhm.
come from an intergalactic spaceship, like that's true. And like it does
Yeah.
not matter whether or not you think that that is true. What matters is that they think that it's true. And I think the sign of a good chaplain, and also the sign of like a good companion and a good friend, is somebody who's
Mhm.
like, well, what does that mean to you? Like, how does that impact your personality and your experience of reality and who you are and who you feel you are? Like,
Yes.
that's how you build trust, is like you try to discover who that person is and how they operate in their reality. And I think that a lot of
Yeah.
people don't know how to do that. And that's why street chaplaincy and working with unhoused folks is so hard, is because we're working with folks who have a larger tendency to not live in a certain consensus reality. We're working with people who
Mm.
are different. And part of the reason I felt
Mhm.
so drawn to this work was because I often feel like my reality is different than others. And it felt really relieving
Yeah.
to work with people who are not operating in this kind of very capitalist, patriarchal
Yes.
consensus reality that we live in. And so to allow your brain to kind of be like, well, is that true? I don't know. But to not verbalize it, but to rather dive into the other side of your brain that's like,
Mm.
cool. You have a bunch of ghosts who hang out with you and they're friendly, or like, oh no, you have a bunch of ghosts who are attacking you. What can I do to help?
Mhm.
It's it's a different way of approaching reality that I think is important for all human beings.
Oh my gosh, I love that you brought in your own perspective here because it feels resonant to mine too. Like,
Yeah.
I also feel alienated by many people as like a witchy interface weirdo.
Yeah, amen.
And I also enjoy being around people who have a different reality than maybe
Yeah.
many people, many others. So I feel like that's so important to name.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah, yeah. That's why we gotta talks about it. Okay, pillar 2, deep listening. Now, I do like entire workshops on deep listening, and they're hours and hours long, and they're really, really important. So shout out, I'm
Yeah.
probably gonna do a deep listening workshop soon actually online, and everybody should take it
Yeah.
because this is just like fundamental life skills. Like all
Yeah.
chaplains fundamentally should know how to be deep listeners, and they should also have more skills than that. But if you don't know
Mhm.
how to deeply listen, then you don't know how to human. And I don't regret saying that.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
So unhoused folks are often ignored and they're talked over and they're dehumanized and they're just kind of thrown to the side, and like people don't
Yeah.
respect them, people don't want to listen to them. And it's just, yeah, it's that's poverty bias, that's hatred, it's judgment. It's not cool. Deep listening is rooted in this deep compassion. It's a spiritual practice. It's the willingness to really sit down and listen to someone. I always say that the tenets of deep listening, like in my deep listening courses, there are 4 tenets. So the first one is no fixing. The second one is don't bring it back to
Mm.
yourself. The third one is don't
Yeah, yeah.
interrupt. And the fourth one is know your boundaries. And so, like, all of those are three of them are a little bit nebulous when working with the unhoused population. For example, don't interrupt. Sometimes you do need to interrupt because sometimes people will talk to you for
Yeah.
20 minutes straight.
It's so true. It's so true.
It's so true, and I freaking love them. I love those folks, and also that's why we have know your boundaries, because if you're, like, getting overwhelmed because you've just been just dumped on of just story after story for 20 minutes or half an hour, and they haven't stopped talking, you need to know your boundaries of, like, "Okay, like, I'll either end this conversation or I'm gonna interrupt them and steer them in
Mhm.
another direction," and that's good chaplaincy.
Mm,
Okay, is this person just
it
rambling,
is.
and how do I ask a good question to bring them back?
Mhm.
I think the only unchanging fundamental thing about deep listening is no fixing, and
Yes.
that can be real dang hard. I'm guessing especially in a hospital.
What comes up for you when, like, the difficulty of not fixing in, like, your work as a
Oh
street
god.
chaplain?
I mean, it's the permanent difficulty. It's
Yeah.
the hardest part of being a street chaplain is, you're working with people who need so much
Yeah.
support. They need
Mhm.
troubleshooting, they need to
Mhm.
navigate the system, they need fixing. And
Yeah.
as a street chaplain, I know a lot of street chaplains who participate in the fixing. And that has to be a cognitive choice. Uh, a really clear, deeply rooted choice. If you're a street chaplain, you need to know
Mhm.
whether or not you're going to be a street chaplain who participates in the fixing or not. I personally do not
Yeah.
not believe, but like for me personally, I'm not going to participate in the fixing because I believe that there's a lot of value in having someone present who is not there to help you with something like physical,
Yeah.
because the reason why deep listening, there's the tenet of no fixing, is because fixing changes the relationship. Fixing creates power
Yeah.
dynamics, fixing creates
Mhm.
expectation, fixing creates just like a kind of a more goal oriented conversation. And part of deep listening is kind of opening this space for reflection and contemplation and also empowerment to grow through one's own skills and processing. And it's
Yeah.
really valuable in my mind to have spaces for every single person, human being on earth, where no one's trying to fix you and you're just allowed to just be and talk and let it out. It's really important.
Yeah. It's critical. It's everything. And I think what you said about it fixing changes the dynamic in the relationship, that it creates hierarchy, also
Yeah.
changes expectations. And I
Yeah.
love that you lifted up that if you're going to engage in fixing as a street chaplain, that you have to make a very intentional choice to do
Yeah.
so. Otherwise, you just are going to get swallowed into this endless hole of need. And then what are you doing actually? Like, what is your role?
Okay, so pillar 3 is a really important one that all chaplains should know how to do. Woohoo! Like, basic chaplain training, y'all got this. And also really, really helpful for those who have not been trained as chaplains. Pillar
Hmm.
3 is pay attention to needs.
Mm,
So, more than probably most human beings, unhoused folks, are often in environments where their emotional, spiritual, interpersonal, physical, and mental needs are not being met.
yeah.
And in hospitals, maybe their physical needs are being met a little bit more than usual. And oftentimes I've found that folks don't even know, like, the interpersonal needs that they are needing. They may not even be wholly aware of it because they've been in survival mode.
Mm, hmm.
So it's really important to pay attention to where a person is at, especially somebody who is unhoused. And again, these are brushstrokes. But some folks may be in a really intense state where they need to talk something through and find clarity. And oftentimes that need will be pretty apparent because they will want to talk to you. But it's always important
Mhm.
for the folks who are a little bit more shy to really give somebody space to see if they want to start talking. It sometimes takes a second.
Mhm.
Some people want to be heard without interruption. Some people do not want you to interrupt them and might even get pissed off if you do. And
Mhm.
so there's that. Some people want to receive attention. They just want to be seen. Some people want to feel connected. Some people need to grieve or express pain. Some people need to laugh and feel lightness. Some people need to pray. Some people need to sit in silence. And some people need to be left alone.
Mhm.
And some
Mhm.
people need
Mhm.
to have clear boundaries lovingly modeled.
Mhm.
And so there's so much variation in this, and I think that as a street chaplain, I'm constantly learning, okay, what does this person need? This person
Mhm.
may need maybe this person's angry and they're yelling. Do they need somebody to listen to them be angry and yell? Or are they overstepping a line and they need somebody
Mhm.
to say hey, this is not cool. I really need you're scaring me, you're scaring people. We're trying to help you. Whatever needs to be said with kindness
Mhm.
and love. Boundaries are really important.
Mhm.
And also, it is important to have patience in this process of figuring out what somebody needs, because like I said, somebody who is unhoused and just got into the hospital may not be fully in touch with what their needs are, especially their
Yeah.
interpersonal and spiritual needs.
I will double down on that. Interpersonal and spiritual needs are kind of low on the list for a lot of unhoused
Yeah.
folks in the hospital setting
Yeah.
because usually there's acute illness happening
Yeah.
or something really, really medically, physically taking precedent. And of course, that intersect with spiritual, emotional, psychological needs, but it is a harder one to access. And I think
Yeah.
that patience, as you mentioned, giving people the multiple opportunities to say no is
Yeah.
something that many hospital chaplains do. And then once once you discern a true no, then respecting that
Oh,
no.
yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because chaplains are one of the few hospital staff that you can say no to. So
Amen.
that is a powerful intervention in itself.
Yeah.
I'm listening to your no. I'm leaving.
Yeah.
Because that's your need. I also think it is important to distinguish the difference between needs and wants
Mm,
in spiritual care. I don't know for you, Charlotte, but for me, the word need invokes something much deeper
yeah.
than a want.
Absolutely.
So we're discerning for needs, not wants. And that's critical.
That is absolutely critical, and I think that for chaplains listening to this, that is a really important thing to identify in your own body and in your own awareness.
Yeah.
What is a need? What is a want?
Yeah.
And to really pay attention, and I think that working with unhoused folks, especially in the hospital setting, you have the opportunity to really, really assess and pay attention, and it's really
Yeah.
crucial that you do so. And for
Mhm.
those who are not chaplains who are listening to this, to just pay attention as much as you possibly can, and to do your best to meet what the person is saying and to listen to the no's, and to do your best to honor and respect. Even if somebody says, no, I don't want this, and I don't know, you're required to do it in some capacity, be as respectful of that
Yeah.
ask as possible, even if you still have to, for example, do your job.
Yeah, I think that that is very common that staff come in with a job to do and the patient does not want it. And then that
Yeah.
creates a conflict.
Yeah.
And really, that always boils down to agency and authority over the person and their life. And it's already
Yeah.
so compromised as we've talked about it. So it's
Oh,
really never actually about the thing, it's
yeah.
about the larger thing. And so
Yeah.
that's the intersection of like staff, hospital staff, and chaplain in the hospital. You can come in and you can actually, as a chaplain, you can name that. You can name that and hold that, recognize it, whatever. It's going to be per the circumstance how you decide to use that data
Yeah.
for the needs of both the staff trying to do their job and the patient who has no autonomy, has
Yeah.
zero autonomy
Zero
in their
autonomy.
life.
Yep.
So that is a really sensitive thing, and it comes up all the time.
Yeah, I'm sure it does, and I'm sure it can be really frustrating, and especially, like, if you're a nurse and you've been working for, like, 10 hours and you've got somebody who's like, "No, no, no, don't want this, I don't want this," to really yeah, like, how do you slow down and say, "You know what?
Mm,
I hear that you don't want this to be done, or I hear that you want me to leave or whatever, but I am required by my job to be doing
mhm.
this, and I honor and respect you, and I'm doing my best to, like, kind of f find ways to communicate respectfully
Yeah.
in those scenarios.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really tricky.
It's true.
It's really hard.
Yeah, yeah, and which is why we have chaplains too, who hopefully know how to, like, navigate those experiences and, like, help be support systems to everybody involved.
Right.
Um, so next one is boundaries. Kind of continue this conversation, uh, being unhoused is an experience of having very little boundaries. You don't
Mm,
have physical boundaries, first off.
mhm.
There is nothing separating you from the outside world and the streets and a
Yeah.
tent, even a tent, like, how much of a boundary is that?
Yeah.
Luckily, it's like a site boundary, but still not a secure one.
Right.
And also, you when you're in the system, the homelessness continuum of care, you're being cycled through shelters, jail, hospital, low income housing, whatever, and the streets. You're oftentimes like your personal boundaries, your personal needs are not going to be met. I've just witnessed so much personal boundary crossing because somebody is just in the system and the system doesn't respect people's boundaries. It's
Yeah.
I don't care if you have a boundary around sleeping by yourself in a room. You have to share a room with four other people. Stuff
Yeah.
like that. There's just a lot of boundary violations and I would argue there's also a lot of spiritual boundary violations that happen
Mm,
just naturally from doing drugs, from experiencing mental illness, even trauma.
mhm.
There's just so many different violations of people's
Mhm.
physical, interpersonal, emotional, spiritual boundaries. And so pillar 4 is boundaries because spiritual care, and I think one of my pet peeves around why when people talk about spiritual care and compassion is, oh, it's just love, it's kindness, it's giving, it's and I'm like, yes, it's all of those things. And it's also the ability to put down healthy, compassionate boundaries, the ability to hold
Mm,
people in boundaries, the
mhm.
ability to hold and know your own boundaries. And I always
Mhm.
say to people that when you're working with somebody who's unhoused, you knowing your own personal boundaries is not only a sign of respect to them, and will also give them more of a sense of security. If you're
Yes.
just a not like a nebulous,
Mhm.
over-giving
Mhm.
glob of love,
Yes.
you are absolutely useless to this person. Well, like, useless is
Yes!
a harsh
Say
word.
it louder, yes!
But you're not going to actually help them in the long run.
Yeah.
Um, Honoring people's boundaries is one of as KA said, it is the ultimate gift as a chaplain, even as any person to honor somebody who's unhoused, to honor their boundaries. And sometimes you may not be able to, but when you can,
Mhm.
do it. It's really,
Mhm.
really, 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 really important. And
Yeah.
also to honor your own boundaries, to know your own boundaries is absolutely crucial when working this population because folks who are unhoused may not know I'm trying to trying to not make any broad sweeping statements. I would say in my experience, sometimes kind of your standard boundaries that you may feel safe in when you're navigating through life will not be met when you're working with people on the streets.
Mm,
And I'm guessing in a hospital that's a little different because there are a lot of boundaries in the hospital. So this may be less relevant. But you as a human being need to know how to stand up and be clear about your own personal boundaries around touch,
mhm,
around the what you share about who you are as a person, about transportation, around
mhm.
so many different aspects. It's important to know. I'm curious, KA, like yeah, I'm curious about what you think about all this.
I think that there's just so much crossover here,
Yeah.
actually,
Okay.
between street chaplaincy and hospital chaplaincy for unhoused folks.
Mhm.
Um, the first that I want to, because you said it so well, and I want to reiterate it, and it comes up so often in the hospital, is that having your own set of boundaries is compassionate for the other person.
Yeah.
It is an act of love for another because
Yep.
the communication there is you're safe with me. There
Yeah.
are boundaries in place. I know what they are
Yep.
and I'm not going to cross them. Even though you might be asking me to. I'm not
Yeah.
going to do that because that is an unsafe environment.
Yes.
And that's also a trauma response.
Yes.
People with severe trauma will try to replicate the same trauma they've experienced in
Yeah.
caring relationships. And it's just a product of trauma. And I
Yeah.
think as in the hospital, in any role, you have to be aware that that's happening. So if you're going to think that you're just going to show up and be a blob of love and that's going to be what they need, which we've already discussed is different from want,
Mm.
then I'm sorry, you are wrong. You are wrong. You could be replicating harm,
Yeah.
creating an unsafe environment,
Yep.
and also it's a transgression against yourself.
Yep.
Not to mention that.
Not to mention that. Yeah.
And where there are higher boundaries in the hospital, obviously, than your work as a street chaplain, I have found my boundaries tested just so severely. Just
Mm.
so severely. Every time it happens, I never think of it in a derogatory way. I always think of it in an open way. What is actually happening here?
Yeah.
What's my role in it? How can I provide care here that meets the spiritual need if I'm a chaplain? This is for
Yep.
chaplains right now.
Yep.
And if I'm not, how can I honor what this person is saying and stop a cycle of harm that's happening?
Ugh. Yeah.
So that's what's coming up for me.
Thank you, KA. That was beautifully said. I totally, completely agree with you. And I think that's a really important thing. Yeah. I always tell people when chatting about becoming a street chaplain or just in general a chaplain. I remember my teacher, who is also KA's teacher, was
Mm,
the first thing that he said to me, when I was in CPE was, "You need to figure out your boundaries, girl." He didn't say it like that.
mhm.
It
Yeah.
was just like, "This is abundantly clear that you need to
Yeah.
figure this out or else, like, you won't be able to do this work." And
Mhm.
it's real. It is real, and I think that you can tell. I don't know about UK, but at least I can tell when a chaplain doesn't know their goddamn boundaries.
Oh, yeah. No, it's clear. It's
Yeah,
clear.
it's
We'll
clear.
see it.
Yeah, we'll see it, we'll see it.
You will be noticed.
Yeah. Yeah, and to think about boundaries as the container, as, like, the strong roots of the care that you provide.
That's beautiful. Oh, it's true. It is like, I don't think that we could underemphasize boundaries. And
Yeah.
that any, I don't think that a chaplain should rely on the hospital environment to provide those in a
Yeah.
tacit sort of way. And nor do I think if you're a different sort of care provider at a hospital, should you lean too heavily on boundaries. Like there does need to be discernment there. And it's important.
Very cool. Okay, well, we could probably talk about boundaries for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, we could talk about it forever.
We could. And just to note, like, I am still learning about my boundaries, and I am still
Oh yeah.
learning to, like, put them down as a chaplain, and it is a constant process, and
It's hard.
I encourage forgiveness of oneself.
This is good to note. I was actually, as I was saying this, I was like, man, I can think of like 17 times recently
Yeah.
that I ignored my boundaries.
Yep.
So it's like it's real. It's tough,
It's tough.
especially for chaplains who have a lot of compassion.
And especially for chaplains who are women, I would say. I would argue.
Mm-hmm.
So, pillar 5, curiosity and openness. So, kind of along the same vein of what we were talking about with folks experiencing mental illness and experiencing substance abuse and the kind of alternate realities that conversation. I think that, like, working with unhoused folks, there is oftentimes, like, I often observe in other people, like, this deep seriousness that occurs
Mm.
of just, like, "This person is super traumatized, and I have to be really serious. Like, I have to really show up and, like, really be good at this." And I'm just like, "Okay," like, "Haha, like, let's chill out for a second." Um, like, first of all, I've rarely met somebody who is unhoused who will respond positively to that intense seriousness.
Mhm.
And part of, like, my approach to I feel every chaplain has a different je ne sais quoi, and we all use different aspects of our personalities to provide care and to build relationships with people and kind of
Mhm.
assume our persona, I would say, and I think that authenticity is really, really important.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so for me, it's something that I learned that is natural to me is I have really deep curiosity and openness
Mhm.
and a sense of wonder, especially when it comes to folks who are living in another reality or who are experiencing another reality than I am. And I learned pretty quickly that skill is something that's really important as a chaplain, and it's a really important skill when you're working with folks who are unhoused, is to be deeply curious, to be
Mm.
wonder, to be open to what they're experiencing, what they're saying, what they're feeling,
Yeah.
even if it's not, again, of the consensus reality. And to be okay with connecting with people in a way that is light and beautiful and fun and
Mhm.
funny and joyful. Like, you don't need to be serious all the time. You don't need to be grumpy
Mhm.
all the time. There is something really valuable about childlike wonder
Mm.
in these relationships. And obviously this pillar 5, curiosity and openness, is coming after boundaries. And there's a reason why we have boundaries to hold us in this container so that we can kind of explore the more fun and playful sides of ourselves and of working with folks. And so again, if this is not authentic to your personality, you don't need to be fun and playful with somebody. And also, if their
Mhm.
needs are very clearly if they're pissed off as hell, like, being fun and playful may work for some people, but it also may make them more
Mhm.
pissed off. So, again, it's, like, about paying attention to needs, paying attention to
Mhm.
what's happening in the moment, paying attention to what is authentic to you. But overall, I would say that to adopt a deep curiosity, a deep openness to what the person is experiencing, to be just open to what is this person's life like? How can I connect with them? What are the authentic places in me that will connect to the authentic places in them?
Mhm.
And to let spiritual care be a place of wonder and
Mhm.
not controlling at
Mhm.
all.
Mhm. Oh my god, that's so good, and it feels so important and relevant. What's coming up for me,
Yeah.
is that often in hospital chaplaincy, and I think this is probably true of other professional hospital staff as well, but especially for spiritual care providers.
Yeah.
There's this idea that if we're not talking about the heavy stuff that we're not doing spiritual care. And that's bullshit. That's
Bullshit.
that's bullshit.
Yeah,
And it's boring.
it's
It's
so boring.
bullshit. It's boring.
And it's
And
dumb.
it's dumb. It is dumb. And it's also not being with who you're with. You're imposing your need. I think we should be talking about your fear of death, even though you think it's really funny that you have diarrhea right
Yeah,
now.
exactly.
You know what I
100%, I know what you mean. Yep.
mean? And so we can either be with the reality or we can impose our ideas of what we think care should look like.
Yeah.
And what I hear from your curiosity and openness and lightness and playfulness is being with what is real for ourselves and
Mm,
for others and not being afraid to lean into more playful territory
right.
to meet somebody. It has often been my experience. I will share something actually, like a
Oh,
quick
hell
vignette,
yeah.
if
Okay.
that's okay. I was
Please.
see- it's very short, I promise. I was called to see this woman in the hospital. She's unhoused, facing housing insecurity, and she was real grumpy.
Hmm.
She was like, "Who the fuck are you?" Wait, are we allowed to swear? My bad.
I've been swearing this entire time.
Okay, perfect. She was like, "Who the fuck are you?" And, I kind of met her where she was at, and she was not having a conversation with me. And so I was like, "What do you like to do? What do you like? Do you like things? Do you like anything at all?" And she was like, "I like beautiful ladies and dogs." And I was like, "Oh," and she was like, "Also, I'm like an artist." I'm like, "Do you wanna color some pictures of beautiful ladies and dogs with me?" And she was like, "Hell yeah." And so
Wow.
I went to the computer, I Googled beautiful ladies and dogs coloring sheet, so my Google search is ruined forever. I'm sure I'm on a list. And I printed out some sheets and I took them to her. We colored. She left the day after. She came back in months later, called for me, and in that second meeting was very open,
Mm,
tearful, emotive. And I attribute that to me being willing to be curious and open to
ugh.
this person's reality.
Yeah.
This is just one experience. I've fucked up so many more times than this paints
Okay.
me, so don't
First
think I'm great.
Okay, well, actually, ladies and gentlefolk and humans. This is do not listen to KA. KA is a freaking brilliant chaplain. And I would just like to say that is brilliant. And that is an excellent example of not only meeting someone's needs, it's also a good trust building, the willingness to slowly build trust.
Mhm.
And it's also this openness and this curiosity of, "Oh, I wonder what is this person's world? I wonder what do you like to do?" That's a freaking brilliant question, and I think that, like, chaplains shouldn't be afraid to enter into that curious space, especially when somebody's grumpy.
Yeah.
Somebody's grumpy and they're telling you constantly to leave them alone, then leave them alone. But if they're just grumpy and they're just kind of there and you're there, don't give up. Be like, yo, what do you like to do? And that's brilliant, KA. You were awesome. I thank you for that story. And I think this actually is also it's a really good example of pillar 6 as well. Pillar 6 is co-regulation, patience, and peacefulness.
Mm,
So the word regulation and dysregulation, I feel like is finally starting to come into mainstream conversation.
yeah.
And as somebody who has my own myriad of neurodivergent experiences in my brain,
Mhm.
regulation is a really big thing for me. And I actually discovered this pillar more acutely while I was actually just building friendships. I moved to a new city and realized that like I get along with people who can co-regulate with me. And then I
Mm,
realized that one of my skills as a chaplain working with folks who are in a constant state of dysregulation was actually regulating. co-regulating with them.
Mhm.
And that there is something really powerful about walking into conversations and relationships with people and being in a state of patience and peacefulness and having your own nervous
Mhm.
system being regulated. And I can imagine this
Mhm.
is really hard, KA, in like a hospital setting where you're under these ugly fluorescent lights and you're working
Mhm.
too many hours and you're probably stressed out and you're
Mhm.
probably even God, if you're in the freaking ICU, all that shit, that's probably there's not a lot of regulation, which is more of a systemic issue. And also,
Mhm.
unfortunately, I would say that you are going to get jack shit nowhere in a relationship with somebody who's unhoused. You might even run the risk of agitating them more if
Mhm.
you enter into a room and you are dysregulated and you are stressed out.
Yeah.
I would argue folks who are unhoused, again, this is broad sweeping statements. A lot of folks who are unhoused that I know and have known and are very sensitive. They're sensitive people. A lot of folks I know in jail are sensitive people who have learned to
Yeah.
put up lots of walls and who are maybe not in tune with that sensitivity, but
Mhm.
they are often folks who have experienced a lot of trauma and
Yeah.
experiencing mental illness and substance abuse. All of those things make you into a sensitive person and whether
Oh,
you're aware
yeah.
of it or not. And being able to regulate your own system and calm your own nervous system is an
Mhm.
incredibly hard thing to do, and also it's possible, and also it's really
Mhm.
important.
Mhm.
You can calm yourself down, you can calm another person down, slowing down,
Mhm.
speaking softly, breathing together, being still, taking personal breaks, even if it's for 2 minutes, just to breathe for a second.
Mhm.
Your presence is just your presence is incredibly powerful, and especially if you are
Mhm.
present.
Mhm. That's so well said. And I think it is possibly my most used of these pillars
Yeah.
here. In the hospital setting, often there are emergencies.
Mhm.
People are dying. Codes are being called. Staff is dysregulated.
Yeah.
The patient is dysregulated. And like you said, and I hear what you're saying, like that we're talking in broad strokes here, but we kind of
Yeah.
have to for the purposes of this conversation.
Yeah.
But many people who are unhoused have faced massive amounts of trauma and they are tuned in to dysregulation in order to be aware of their surroundings so they are not,
Yeah.
harmed.
Yeah. It's a great
And
way of putting it.
I also come from a dysfunctional household, and I too have that ability to be hyper vigilant and have become dysregulated
Yep.
because of that hypervigilance.
Yep.
So from my own personal history, that is an intersection. Um, and you're right, it is hard in the hospital environment to regulate. It is a chaotic, horrible,
Yeah.
horribly challenging environment,
I bet.
but it is possible. And some things that are sort of drilled into us as hospital chaplains that might be applicable to other staff too is be on the same eye level as whoever you're talking to. Don't talk
Mm,
down to somebody. I'm often squatting in weird positions just
yeah,
so I can be eye level with somebody in the hospital.
yeah.
Staff often talk down. That's not going to co-regulate
Ugh,
somebody.
yeah.
That's going to create dissidence and hierarchy.
Mhm.
So that's something I employ pretty regularly is lowering myself physically
Mm,
to the eye level of whoever is needing co-regulation in that moment.
yep.
And then of course the other half of that is being aware of your own self. Am
Mhm,
I am I dysregulated?
mhm.
How am I going to be with this person in peace and calmness and compassion if I'm freaking the fuck out? And I think that's a question that we all have to ask ourselves, especially those of us who work in a hospital environment where it is so dysregulating. How do you calm yourself? So you can co-regulate with who we're serving, the
Mm.
patients,
Mhm.
and especially vulnerable populations
Yeah.
like unhoused people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I mean, KA, I've been in so many chaplaining scenarios where I was dysregulated and
Oh, me too.
learned the hard way. Yeah, it's like you
Yeah.
walk out of those encounters and you're like, "Well, shit, I did
You're
not
like,
do a
damn
good job."
it. Not, I usually say, that was not my finest work.
That was
So,
not my finest work,
that was not
100%.
my finest work.
I had to learn the hard way that when I'm and this is a privilege as a street chaplain, when I am dysregulated, there's certain degrees of it, and I've had to learn, okay, we are at degree 10 out of 10 dysregulation.
Mm.
We're not working today. That's
Mhm.
I will cause harm. And
Mhm.
I have actually been in situations where I was in one particular situation where I was dysregulated and made a judgment call and said something to someone that could have really like ended in harm, in real harm. And I was
Mhm.
really
Mhm.
lucky that that didn't happen, but it was just like kind of a
Yeah.
passing situation. Someone asked me something and I told them the answer to it, and in reality I should not have given them the answer. And I know I'm being really vague, but it was a scenario where if I had been assessing the situation and been boots on the ground, grounded,
Mhm.
serious, I wouldn't have answered and I would have navigated that in a different way. And I'm just saying this because you really, when you are dysregulated, you are going to make decisions and judgments that really may not be that intelligent. And
Yeah.
it's just a reality. It's just the reality of it. So to be aware.
Yeah, and I'm glad you shared that. I can think of just so actually it's so funny. I was in therapy today just processing
Really?
what at a chaplaincy encounter in which I was dysregulated. That like
Yeah.
luckily didn't cause the harm my dysregulation didn't cause the harm that it could have,
Yeah.
but it was not good, you know?
Yeah.
It's yeah, and if we're talking about co-regulation being a pillar in meeting unhoused folks in the hospital, yeah, attending to ourselves and make sure that we're staying regulated is,
So
we can't co-regulate if we're dysregulated. It will
it's
not
true.
work.
It's true. It's true.
And you can't even fake it. You actually have to be it.
You have to be it.
Um
Yep.
so it's so important. Like I said, I use it more than anything else here and also have failed at it miserably.
Yeah. Yeah, you're talking to 2 ladies who have failed and succeeded probably equal numbers of times.
But the fact that we can admit our failures makes us superior. So
Makes
don't
us
worry,
way
everybody.
superior. Yeah, don't worry. We're superior. Yeah. Okay, okay, we have one more freaking pillar. Pillar 7, tools and ritual. So we got our spiritual tools, we got our ritual tools. For all y'all chaplains out there, this should be a walk in the park.
Mhm.
I cannot emphasize enough the importance and value of using the tools that you have at your disposal as a chaplain or just as a human being to just like help bring some more, how do I say this? Like help bring some more nuance and support and
Mhm.
strength to an encounter with somebody who is unhoused, to a relationship with someone who is unhoused. It's just really, really helpful. Like there are tools that we have. So you're like, what's the tools?
Yeah.
Well, let me give you a few examples. So we've got breath work, we've got prayer, we've got simple blessings, we have guided meditations, we have nature based grounding, and we have silence and intentional ritual. For example, having someone write something down and then I don't know, throwing it out the window and saying, "Now it's gone." You can come up with so many
Mhm.
rituals. There are so many tools out there. There may be some people who love tarot cards. There may be some people who want a crystal. There may be some people who want you to read
Mhm.
them the Bible or the Quran. There are when we're in the world of spirituality and spiritual care, the benefit of it is that it's not therapy, it's not just mental. It's also
Mhm.
including that which is bigger and that which is outside of us, the
Yes.
mysterious energy of the universe. And that in itself is a very powerful
Yeah.
thing that not many folks who are unhoused really have access to. And that's part of my life's
Mhm.
work is giving people access to their spiritual rights. Anybody can
Mm.
Anybody can pray. Anybody can pray, and you do not need to believe in
Mhm.
God to pray. You do not need to have a
Mhm.
specific faith tradition to pray. You can
Mhm.
literally say, "Dear Earth, dear universe, dear solar system in which gravity is in charge. I am asking for your support, your blessing, your protection, your guidance." Prayer and meditation, just leading someone through visualization, a body scan, leading someone through box
Mhm.
breathing. These are all spiritual care tools that any person, you don't need to be a minister, you don't need to be a chaplain to know how to do these
Mhm.
things. And to offer
Mhm.
that support is it's using the freaking railings that has been given unto us. We don't
Mhm.
I don't know what the metaphor I'm trying to go for is, but we don't need to walk up the stairs alone. We can use the railings. And that's why spiritual care is so powerful. And so use the tools. Use the tools. Be brave. It's scary to be like, "Hey, can I pray for you?" But I don't know
Mhm.
about you, KA. I did KA and I went to the same schools. And one of the schools that I went to, the Chaplaincy Institute, we did a module on prayer. I think it was just one class. And we
It
like
was.
had somebody come in and like talk to us about prayer. And we did um like a practice where we prayed for each other. Something that a lot of people reflected on is when you're praying for someone, you're really self-conscious about the words that you're using.
Mm.
And you're really worried, you're like, "Oh god, like, am I saying the
Mhm.
stupidest shit ever?" And then for the person receiving the prayer, it is the most transformative, powerful, beautiful, loving experience, and you're just
Mhm.
basking in it. You're not listening to the
Mhm.
specific English of what somebody's saying or the words. It doesn't
Mhm.
matter. It's the
Yeah.
energy and the thought that counts. And I've prayed with people who are super Christian, and I'm not Christian. I don't really I can s pray in Christian-like way, but I don't know how to do the solid Christian prayers. And that person was listened to me pray, were so into it, so grateful, and then they prayed for themselves in the way that they wanted to. And that was a
Mhm.
powerful experience for both of us. And so it's just again, you don't need to be a fancy minister or chaplain to do these things. They're tools. They're tools.
Yeah. I love that we're talking about prayer. It's one of my favorite things to talk about as a tool that anybody can use. It's
Anybody?
really true. And the type of prayer that we're talking about is contemporaneous prayer.
Mm.
Um, which is it's flexible, it's personalized, and it's adapted to the moment. And it doesn't have to be in the prayer structure that you might guess. Like, it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be a Christian
No.
prayer. And you're so right, Charlotte. Like, we may feel like tripped over our words, but the person receiving the prayer is just like, ah, and
Thank
it is
God.
just so yeah, it's just such a relief. And how I
Yeah.
usually phrase it is, it's a way of turning over unsolvable issues to the great mystery. So
I love that.
here's all these things. I can't solve them. You can't solve them. The hospital can't solve them.
Yeah.
But we can name that to the universe or whomever that the patient finds resonance with, I
Yep.
don't know, even energy. We can release that to something larger than ourselves and expand this tiny little issue these issues that we've been, hammering on for 30 minutes and open them up to a
Yep.
wider context through prayer. It's such a powerful thing. And and I'm going to talk to the chaplains. Let's talk to the chaplains. I
Let's
know
talk to
some
the chaplains.
chaplains that they will not pray. I know some chaplains that refuse to pray.
Dang.
And like, word, whatever, you do you, I guess. But sorry, you're wrong. And also,
Sorry, you're wrong.
also, you're missing out on like really special and
Yeah.
powerful and something that doesn't have to be religious in the
Yeah.
way you might think of it.
Yeah.
So I'm doubling down on the prayer here
Yeah.
as a tool in the hospital setting
Yeah.
in particular.
Yeah.
I love praying for myself. I only offer prayer if someone brings up that they have a practice of prayer or that I catch wind of that this is
Mhm.
something they would be open to exploring.
Yes. Yeah.
And I listen really carefully for the language that the person is using, their tone, and attitude around this, if this is going to be an appropriate offering or not. But when it
Yeah.
is, it hits. It really does.
It hits. It hits. It
It
helps.
hits. It helps. It's expansive,
Yep.
and it does separate out what we do from other models of care,
Yes.
that do not take these larger philosophical issues into consideration.
100. Thank you, KA. I really
Well,
appreciated
thank you.
that. Was so well said, and yeah, I just like yeah, God, it's a powerful thing, and I think especially working with unhoused folks, you're navigating a lot of hopelessness and helplessness
Yes, yes, yes. That's
and
right.
deep existential suffering
Mm-hmm.
and crisis. And
Yeah.
I mean, not to go too deep into spiritual rights for the unhoused, but when you're in spaces like that, giving people the tools or the
Mm-hmm.
opportunities to take a step back and to feel as if there is something bigger than themselves or
Mm-hmm.
something deep within themselves or
Mm-hmm.
some energy that is participating in their lives that is going to
Yeah.
stay with them. You're not going to stay with them when they leave the hospital. I'm not going
Right.
to stay with them when they're walking around at night on the streets. Your
Right.
prayer is more likely to stay with them
Yes.
or even doing a meditation with them. That is those are things that penetrate the experience of deep suffering and pain and crisis and hopelessness. And
Mm-hmm.
if there's anything that will kind of sprout a seed of growth or empowerment or hope or joy or even just
Mm-hmm.
resiliency, it's
Mm-hmm.
going to be spiritual care.
Yeah.
And prayer is a huge one of them. And it is a right to feel connected to the world and the universe and to explore those feelings. And we are giving people that opportunity.
That your term spiritual rights for the unhoused, is that what you were saying,
Yeah,
Charlotte?
that's what I was
That
saying.
is
Yeah.
so powerful because it also inverts this like hierarchy of needs that we're so familiar with. Like if we're going to look at like Maslow's model, it's just like,
Yeah.
you don't have access to, I'm putting some air quotes, loftier
Yeah.
things like
Yeah.
spirituality, psychological safety, et cetera, unless you have your basic needs met. And I'm not so sure that that's A, helpful or B, true.
No.
And so I really champion spiritual rights for the unhoused because it's just critical.
It's
It's
critical.
critical. It's just everything. How can it be that only the privileged people of this world have access to spiritual care? How can
I
that be?
I know, and it's
That's fucked
crazy.
up.
It's fucked up, and it's so true because the privileged people can walk into churches, and they can walk into
Right.
mosques, they can walk into retreats, meditation retreats, like most unhoused folks are not going to be welcome into those
No.
spaces. And also, I would like to say that Maslow's hierarchy of needs can freaking screw it. I think that we have, as a society, gravely misunderstood the role of spirituality in the human psyche. And it's just
Yeah.
comes from so much fear and so much just kind of intense religious industrialization and all this shit. And I think that was all of everything. That was all the pillars. We've built our foundation and we've built our pillars, and now we have a standing building with no roof.
Sorry.
And the roof is you, my friends. You are the ones who create the roof. And that is in your compassion and your willingness to learn and your desire to try new things and be brave. I think that's that's my last word of advice for folks working with the unhoused, and especially in healthcare settings, and anybody. Be brave. Be brave. Don't hide away yourself. Don't hide away um your desire to, I don't know, reach out and connect. Just try new things, be kind, be grounded, be respectful, and yeah, don't run away. Don't run away from these opportunities to totally grow and totally learn more about yourself and like experience new realities and experience new ways of thinking. This is a beautiful, heavy and intense and serious and also fun exploration, beautiful exploration of community and relationship and yeah, growth.
Yeah, I love your analogy, metaphor of of our dear listeners being the roof to the pillars that you've are so genius. That are Charlotte's, by the way. These are Charlotte's own pillars, everybody. She's a genius
Trademark.
and yes, they are trademarked. Sorry. You can't have them. But you can use them, I guess, because that's what
They're
we're doing right
public
now.
knowledge.
The image that comes to my mind in like the hospital setting is all the providers are like shingles on a roof and we're all
Ooh.
covering the roof together. And we all
Aw.
need each other,
Aw.
to cover the area. So whatever background you have, whatever specialty you're bringing to caring for the unhoused population in the hospital, your perspective and your background are needed, and you can use Charlotte's brilliant pillars to lean into caring more deeply for this marginalized population that does not receive the care or attention that they have a right to as a human being.
And also, wherever we're posting this, we're going to also give people the opportunity to write comments, because I didn't mention this in the beginning, but I am not an expert on homelessness. And so, just as like a general PSA, we're open to conversation as long as it comes from a respectful and kind place. As long as you're willing to have a respectful and kind conversation with us, let's freaking do it. I'm just not down for
Mhm.
like mean internet comments like that. Those we won't respond to. But like if you want to, like, I'm just not down for that. For like real discourse, like hell yeah, like tell us what we said wrong or whatever. Like we can have a convo. So, thanks everyone.
Yeah, thank you.